All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we've already downloaded, extracted, and imported the new project, the Kilovolt project, into our code, and that's this right here. And then we also, well, I added some art from this particular website, so you're going to see my character is going to be different than what you've typically seen. Now, I don't have access for you to have the same exact images I have, so really it's important during this video to pay attention to why I insert certain lines of code, because you may find yourself with more or less variables. Your time may change on some of these animation sprites. So this website, I direct you to this one because I've been really happy with the artwork that these people do. They do a wonderful job. They also offer free sprites. Now, the caveat is a lot of these sprites are really large, so it takes a little bit of editing. I use GIMP to eventually shrink these down, and I notice they're all right-facing. You can't complain with free, so again, I use GIMP to flip them all left, so I have a right and a left set of these, so that my character can go backwards and forwards on the game. And I might end up creating some of those videos later on how to do that, and I'll add them to this description in a couple weeks after this animation or this video. I will also add the link to this website as well as this source file here so that you can start brand new right where I'm at. So if we look back at the code, I'm going to end up editing animation, assets, game screen, loading screen, and robot Java. So the first place I'm going to go to is the assets class. Now in the assets class, you're going to end up creating some variables, but I want to show you physically what we're going to end up creating real quick. So here's my phone running the program. Here's the splash screen. And then if you look, right now you can see my character. His feet are off the ground. So this is going to be an issue that you're probably going to have. It's going to be too high, too low, however it animates. So eventually you'll have to kind of go back to what I've shown you before, because this is very much like the applet version as far as understanding how the character draws. And then you'll probably eventually want to redraw out the collision boxes as well so that you can get a better look. That's a little bit different than what we did in the applet version, and I'll eventually create a way so that you can see that as well. But let's go back to the game real quick. So I've got this. Let me shoot these guys out of the way. Now you'll notice that he kind of went back to the robot, right, at different times. That's because I don't have those animations set up. As a matter of fact, the only animation I have set up is his idle animation. So if you look real closely, you can see that he's kind of doing a breathing motion, right? So I'm going to show you how we did that, and that one's actually pretty easy. And then eventually I'll do a shooting animation so that we'll see how to do that. So first things first, in the assets file, let's go ahead and let's create some variables. I had to create 8 variables, and the reason why, as you just see here, they're all public static image variables. I named it MIR1, MIR2, MIR3, all the way through 8. And I also put a comment for what they all are for. They're for the mech guy idle right. Now the reason why I had to have 8, because this may vary for you, is if I look at my images, and you can see I added a bunch of images inside here. These are for my character. Again, yours will be different if you use your own images. So the reason why is because the idle animation that I have requires 8 images. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So that's why I have 8. If you have more or less, you'll have to add more or less. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy this right here, just this one line. And then I'm going to go to the game screen class. Then once I'm in the game screen class, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paste those old lines. And instead of public static, I'm going to change that just to private. Get rid of that public and that static word there. Give it a little bit of space here. Then I'm going to Control S, save that real quick. And now I have private image MIR1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, it's really important to note that right now, these two, the MIR8 that's in here and the MIR8 that's in the asset class, are not the same. They just happen to have the same name, but they're really from 2 different classes. They're local variables or they're fields in their own separate class. So they aren't necessarily related, though they will work together, which is why I just named them the same thing. That way I understand that even though they're from different classes, this is eventually going to be assigned to that. So I tried to name my variable something that makes sense. The reason why I have MIR is because it's MechGuy idle write, MechGuy idle write 2. So your variable should mean something to whatever it's for. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of these character images because these are the images that currently are for the robot, right? And since my objective is to get rid of the robot, at least the idle version of the robot, I no longer need him. So I'm going to change this to MIR, and then I'm going to delete these two because I don't need them. And I don't want to make my MIR in this class equal the assets class character. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make it worth the equal the assets class MIR1, MIR2. So the things that are named the same basically. So assets dot MIR1. And then the easiest thing for me to do is just to copy and paste this. I know that I have 8 of these, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then, of course, I have to make sure that these are named correctly, too. So this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then I will also have to name this one. So that's a nice thing about naming them all the same thing, is I don't have to worry about typing out a bunch of different variable names. So now, basically, what I'm doing in each one of these lines, I'm saying MIR in this class equals the MIR in the assets class. So now, because I want to change the idle animation, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a look at the idle animation here, which is just anim. And I'm not going to change anything other than say that instead of the add frame character, it's going to be MIR. And then I'm going to delete these other ones. As a matter of fact, I'm going to change this real quick to 100. And if you don't understand why I'm changing timing, I believe the unit to day 7 in the regular Kilobolt has the explanation of animation timing. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paste this again 8 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to put in the right image. So basically what this area code here does is it basically creates a flip book. That's what animation is. So we're showing one picture after another, after another, after another. And it's really kind of like a flip book animation. I'm going to also comment this and say that this is the idle animation. So I know exactly what this whole animation is for. I don't have to keep going back and forth and trying to remember a whole lot of things. So once you have this done, and if this matches your images, you should be almost on your way there. We've got a couple more things we got to do, and that will be done in our loading screen class. So once we get to our loading screen class, right under here, I'm just going to put a comment. I'm going to put that we are assigning the image files to our assets variables. And then typing this out right here, you'll see that I assigned the assets variable MIR, the GNU image file. Now you got to be really careful here to make sure that you're naming the right files. If you're not getting files that show up, chances are you misspelled something here, especially if you have a name that's kind of as long as mine with underscores and stuff like that. Now the good thing about mine is it's pretty descriptive. I know that this is the mech guy, his name's Jughead. I know that he's idle. I know this is the first picture in the sequence. So that's good, but it can also be a little bit confusing if for some reason it ends up that I mistyped some kind of character. So just be careful in naming yours, make sure they're useful. And now that you have all this, if you have the same character or the same amount, we should be able to run this, and you should now have the same thing that I have, which is an idle animation. Now again, if you look at me shoot, there is no shooting animation. As a matter of fact, there's a couple things I see wrong with this. Just out of pure luck, it seems like the bullets are about the same length as the barrel here, or at least the same vertical height, right? It's coming out of there. But they start way far away. You notice I'm off the ground. So these are all things I have to change. But for right now, I've created my own custom animation, just overwriting an animation that exists. The next video, I'm going to be a little bit more complex in my animation. I'm going to have a gun that shoots, and it's going to reshoot every time I hit the shoot button, and it's going to go through the whole animation just one time as opposed to constantly repeating.